Let's see. Yeah, I'm just going to jump right into it here. All right. Once upon a time, in midwinter, when the snowflakes were falling like feathers from heaven, a queen sat sewing at her window, which had a frame of black ebony wood. As she sewed, she looked up at the snow and pricked her finger with her needle. 3 drops of blood fell into the snow. The red on the white looked so beautiful that she thought to herself, if only I had a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the wood in this frame. Soon afterward, she had a little daughter who was as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as ebony wood, and therefore they called her Little Snow White. And as soon as the child was born, the queen died. Now, we'll say real quick, there are 2 versions to the story. An older version than this, it doesn't have the mother dying. The mother is the evil queen. So this is her own mother that turns on her. But I think that in the Brothers Grimm version, which I think this is what, that's what this is. They changed that small detail about it. So basically, the reason she's called Snow White, unlike what the movie that just came out is saying, is that her skin is snow white, her lips are blood red, and her hair is as black as ebony. And this was this is supposed to make her extremely beautiful with that symmetry and contrast to it. All right. A year later, the king took himself another wife. She was a beautiful woman, and she was proud and arrogant, and she could not stand if anyone might surpass her in beauty. She had a magic mirror. Every morning she stood before it, looked at herself, and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" To this the mirror answered, "You, my queen, are fairest of all." Then she was satisfied, for she knew the mirror spoke the truth. Snow White grew up and became ever more beautiful. When she was 7 years old, she was as beautiful as the light of day, even more beautiful than the queen herself. One day, when the queen asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" it answered, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you." The queen took fright and turned yellow and green with envy. From that hour on, whenever she looked at Snow White, her heart turned over inside her body. So great was her hatred for the girl. The envy and pride grew even greater, like a weed in her heart, until she had no peace day or night. Do want to pause there real quick. So, an interesting thing about this is that you have, obviously this story is about an older woman who won't let go of her own beauty. And naturally, as you grow older, your beauty fades, and the next generation, they're the ones who are going to be beautiful the way you were when you were younger. And so this is essentially a story showing like she has an unnatural desire to hold on to something she has no right to hold on to. And it causes her to be envious, and envy is it's one of the worst ones, right? Because you can do something positive with things like with greed. You can have an entire system where, hey, if you want to get your own in this system, if you want to be greedy, then you need to actually contribute to the system, right? So that's basically like a capitalist system, right? And so you're using people complain about it, and we'll talk about this because they brought up communism in the review. But in capitalism, you could be greedy all you want, and it is a greed-based system, but it uses human greed to actually make them productive into doing something for society, either making a product or service, or helping someone make a product or service by working for them and by contributing to society and giving making it better. Then you can satisfy your greed with whatever you're able to get out of it. So it's productive, right? But envy, so speaking of like socialism, is entirely predicated on envy, which is entirely destructive, and all it does is take, right? So there's no way to turn envy into something productive, right? So envy is one of the bad ones, and that's what she's suffering from. Turned yellow and green with envy. Let's see what happens. Then she summoned a huntsman and said to him, "Take Snow White into the woods. I never went to see her again. Kill her, and as proof that she is dead, bring her lungs and her liver back to me." Oh, that is In the Disney movie, the 1937 one, it was her heart. And this is interesting, her lungs and liver. I have to look into why that specifically would be the request. The huntsman obeyed and took Snow White into the woods. He took out his hunting knife and was about to stab into her innocent heart when she began to cry, saying, "Oh, dear huntsman, let me live. I will run to the wild woods and never come back." Because she was so beautiful, the huntsman took pity on her and he said, "Run away, you poor child." You say she was 7. Did it say she was 7? Let's see here. Let's see here. I don't think it says her age, I'll be honest. I think, yeah, I don't remember seeing her age. It just says that, when she was 7 years old, she was as beautiful as the light of day, even more beautiful than the queen herself. Oh, there you go. There it is. I'm wrong. You're right. Yeah, it says she was 7 years old. My goodness. Hey, this is the original German fairy tale, right? Is before she asked the mirror. Yeah, so basically, by the time she was 7, she was more beautiful than the queen. So that was just kind of showing, I guess it talks about, I mean, how beautiful she was. I don't think necessarily means in like a sexual way, but, the queen was losing to a 7-year-old. Yeah, exactly. She's 7, of course. All right. So the huntsman obeyed. Oh, no, we're not there yet. I'm sorry, we're past that. Okay, he thought the wild animals will soon devour you anyways, but still, it was if a stone had fallen from his heart, where he would not have to kill her. Yep, he doesn't have to do it. He'll let the woods do it. Just then, a young boar came running by. He killed it, cut out its lungs and liver, and took them back to the queen as proof of Snow White's death. The cook had to boil them with salt, and the wicked woman ate them. Oh my gosh, supposing that she had eaten Snow White's lungs and liver. Disgusting. The poor child was now all alone in the great forest, and she was so afraid that she just looked she just looked at all the leaves on the trees, it's weird way of saying it, and did not know what to do. Then she began to run. She ran over sharp stones and through thorns, and wild animals jumped at her, but they did her no harm. She ran as far as her feet could carry, and just as evening was about to fall, she saw a little house and went inside in order to rest. Inside the house, everything was small, but so neat and clean that no one could say otherwise. Let's see, in this version, the house was clean. There was a little table with a white tablecloth and 7 little plates. Each plate had a spoon, and there were 7 knives and forks and 7 mugs as well. Against the wall, there were 7 little beds, all standing in a row and covered with snow white sheets. Because she was so hungry and thirsty, Snow White ate a few vegetables and a little bread from each little plate. And from each mug, she drank a drop of wine. Afterward, because she was so tired, she lay down on a bed, but none of them felt right. One was too long, the other was too short, and so finally the 7th one was just right. This is that, the 3 bears. Yeah, this is similar to that one. She remained lying in it, entrusting herself to God, and fell asleep. After dark, the masters of the house returned home. It's such a similar theme. There were the 7 dwarves who picked and dug for ore in the mountains. They lit their 7 candles, and as soon as it was light in their house, they saw that someone had been there, or not everything was in the same order they had left it. Yeah. Goldilocks. Gotcha. Yes, it's turning into Goldilocks now. The first one said, "Who's been sitting in my chair?" Oh, this is so Goldilocks. The second one, "Who's been eating from my plate?" The third one, "Who's been eating my bread?" The fourth one, "Who's been eating my vegetables?" The fifth one, "Who's been sticking with my fork?" The sixth one, "Who's been cutting with my knife?" The 7th one, "Who has been drinking from my mug?" Then the first one saw at that there was a little imprint in his bed and said, "Who stepped on my bed?" The others came running up and shouted, "Someone has been lying at mine as well." But the 7th one, looking at his bed, found Snow White lying there asleep. The dwarves aren't scared this time. The 7 dwarves all came running up, and they cried out with amazement. They fetched their 7 candles and shone the light on Snow White. "Oh, good heaven! Oh, good heaven!" they cried. "This child is so beautiful." Maybe she is still 7. They were so happy that they did not wake her up, but let her continue to sleep there in the bed. The 7 dwarf The seventh dwarf had to sleep with his companions, 1 hour with each of them. Maybe he stunk. I don't know. 1 hour with each of them, and then the night was done. The next morning, Snow White woke up, and then she saw the seven dwarves, and she was frightened. But they were friendly and asked, "What is your name?" "My name is Snow White," she answered. "How did you find your way to our house?" the dwarves asked her. Then she told them that her stepmother had tried to kill her, and the huntsman had spared her life, and that she had run the entire day, finally coming to their house. The dwarves said, "If you will keep house for us and cook, make beds, wash, sew, knit, and keep everything clean and orderly, then you can stay with us, and you shall have everything that you want." That's a pretty good deal. "Yes," said Snow White, "with all my heart." So she kept house for them. Every morning they went to the mountains looking for ore and gold, and in the evening they came back home. Their meal had been ready, or had to be ready. During the day the girl was alone. The good dwarves warned her, saying, "Be careful about your stepmother. She will soon know that you are here. Do not let anyone in." Now the queen believed that she had eaten Snow White's lungs and liver. She could only think that she was again the first and most beautiful woman of all. She stepped before a mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" It answered, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true. But Snow White, beyond the mountains, with the seven dwarves, is still 1,000 times fairer than you." That mirror just dimed her out. Like, they just dimed out her location. What the heck? Didn't have to do that. Oh man, well, yeah. Anyways, I'm trying to think of that term. You know, when you reveal where someone lives. Yeah, I'm sure someone in chat will think of it. This startled the queen, for she knew that the mirror did not lie, and she realized the huntsman had deceived her and that Snow White was still alive. Then she thought and thought again how she could kill Snow White. For as long as she was not the most beautiful woman in the entire land, her envy would not give her rest. At last she thought of something. Coloring her face, she disguised herself as an old peddler woman, so that no one would recognize her. In this disguise, she went to the house of the seven dwarves. Knocking on the door, she called out, "Beautiful wares for sale! For sale!" Snow White peered out the window and said, "Good day, dear woman. What do you have for sale?" "Good wares, beautiful wares," she said. "Bodice laces in all colors." And she took out one that was braided from colorful silk. "Would you like this one?" "I can let that honest woman in," thought Snow White. Then unbolted the door and bought the pretty bodice lace. "Child," said the old woman, "how you look! Come, let me lace you up properly." Uh-oh. The unsuspecting Snow White stood before her and let her do up the new lace. But the old woman pulled so quickly and so hard, Snow White could not breathe. "You used to be the most beautiful one," said the old woman, and hurried away. Not long after, so she's trying to like cut off her oxygen with a bodice lace. She's not good at this whole killing thing. This is pretty bad. Not long after, I think there's nothing even magical about this. It's just a dick move. Not long afterward, in the evening time, the seven dwarves came home. How terrified they were when they saw their dear Snow White laying on the ground, not moving at all, as though she were dead. They lifted her up, and seeing that she was too tightly laced, they cut the laces in two. Then she began to breathe a little, and little by little, she came back to life. When the dwarves heard what had happened, they said, "The old peddler woman was no one else but the godless queen. Take care and let no one in when we are not with you." When the wicked woman returned home, she went to her mirror and asked, "Here we go, we'll go through it quickly. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's in this land is fairest of all?" The mirror answered once again, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White beyond the mountains, with the seven dwarves, is still 1,000 times fairer than you." I feel like the mirror is egging her on. When she heard that, all her blood ran to her heart, because she knew that Snow White had come back to life. "This time," she said, "I shall think of something that will destroy you." She's bad at this. Then with the art of witchcraft, okay, now she's going to do something a little bit more. Let's go. Which she understood, she made a poisoned comb. Then she disguised herself, taking the form of a different old woman. Thus, she went across the seven mountains to the seven dwarfs, knocked on the door, and called out, "Good wares for sale, good wares for sale." Snow White looked out and said, "Go on your way. I am not allowed to let anyone in." "You surely may take a look," said the old woman, pulling out the poisoned comb and holding it up. The child liked it so much that she let herself be deceived, and she opened the door. After they had agreed on the purchase, the old woman said, "Now let me comb your hair properly." She had barely stuck the comb into Snow White's hair when the poison took effect, and the girl fell down unconscious. "You specimen of beauty," said the wicked woman. "Now you are finished," and she walked away. Oh my gosh. All right, well, let's see what happens. Fortunately, it was almost evening, and the 7 dwarves came home. When they saw Snow White lying on the ground as if she were dead, they immediately suspected her stepmother. They examined her and found the poisoned comb. They had scarcely pulled it out when Snow White came to herself again and told them what had happened. Once again, they warned her to be on guard and not open the door for anyone. All right, look at that. Yeah, the mirror is a snitch. Totally, he's diming around. Back at home, the queen stepped before the mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's in the land is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror said, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White beyond the mountains with the 7 dwarves is still 1,000 times fairer than you." When the queen heard the mirror saying this, she shook and trembled with anger. "Snow White shall die," she shouted, "if it costs me my life." Ooh, is that foreshadowing? Then she went into her most secret room. No one else was allowed inside, and she made a poisoned apple. From outside, it was beautiful. What's a poisoned apple? I think it's just supposed to say poisoned apple. Anyways, from the outside, it was beautiful, white with red cheeks, and anybody who saw it would want it, but anyone who might eat a little piece of it would die. Then, coloring her face, she disguised herself as a peasant woman, and thus went across the 7 mountains to the 7 dwarves. She knocked on the door. Snow White stuck her head out the window and said, "I'm not allowed to let anyone in. The dwarves have forbidden me to do so." "That is all right with me," answered the peasant woman. I'll easily get rid of my apples. Here, I'll give you one of them." "No," said Snow White, "I cannot accept anything." "Are you afraid of poison?" Oh my gosh, so in the nose. Asked the old woman. "Look, I'll cut the apple in 2. You eat the red half, and I shall eat the white half." Now the apple had been so artfully made that only the red half was poisoned. Snow White longed for the beautiful apple, and when she saw the peasant woman was eating part of it, she could no longer resist, and she stuck her hand out, took the poisoned half. She barely had bitten in her mouth. I think it should say bitten it in her mouth when she fell to the ground dead. The queen looked at her with a gruesome stare, laughed loudly, and said, "White as snow, red as blood, black as ebony wood, this time the dwarves cannot awaken you." Back at home, she asked the mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the latest fairest of all?" It finally answered, "You, my queen, are fairest of all." Then her envious heart was at rest. I think we're almost there. We're almost there, guys. Then her envious heart was at rest, as well as an envious heart can be at rest. When the dwarves came home that evening, they found Snow White lying on the ground. She was not breathing at all. She was dead. They lifted her up and looked for something poisonous. They undid her laces. They combed her hair. They washed her with water and wine, but nothing helped. The dear child was dead, and she remained dead. They laid her in a bier, and all 7 sat down to her and mourned for her and cried for 3 days. They were going to bury her, but she still looked as fresh as a living person and still had her beautiful red cheeks. They said, "We cannot bury her in the black earth," and they had a transparent glass coffin made so she could be seen from all sides. They laid her inside, and with golden letters wrote on it her name and that she was a princess. Then they put the coffin outside on a mountain, and one of them always stayed with it and watched over her. The animals too came and mourned for Snow White, first an owl, then a raven, and finally a dove. Snow White lay there in the coffin a long, long time, and she did not decay, but looked like she was asleep, for she was still as white as snow, and as red as blood, and as black-haired as ebony wood. Now it came back to pass that a prince entered these woods and happened into the dwarf's house. So this is the first time compared to what Walt Disney did. Walt Disney had the prince show up at the very beginning and show that the prince and Snow White had a love interest, but her tattered clothes and her bad circumstances, being treated poorly by the queen, was what kept her from properly courting him. In this, there's just a random prince that shows up. So we'll see what happens. And she's already dead. Let's see here. Yeah. They can't bury her. I lost my place. My bad, everybody. Now it came to pass that a prince, there we go, enter into the dwarf's house where he sought shelter for the night. He saw the coffin of the mountain and within it beautiful Snow White, and he read what was written on it with golden letters. Then he said to the dwarves, "Let me have the coffin. I will give you anything you want for it." But the dwarves answered, "We will not sell it for all the gold in the world." Then he said, "Then give it to me, for I cannot live without being able to see Snow White. I will honor her and respect her as my most cherished one." As he thus spoke, the good dwarves felt pity for him and gave him the coffin. The prince had his servants carried away on their shoulders, but when it happened that one of them stumbled on some brush, and this dislodged from Snow White's throat the piece of poisoned apple that she had bitten off, not long afterwards she opened her eyes, lifted the lid from her coffin, and sat up, and she was alive again. Somebody may tell him her age, right? Although it's been some time, like, does it count if she's been there for 11 years in that state? I mean, is she 18 now? Like, I don't know. Good heavens, where am I? She cried out. The prince said joyfully, "You are with me." He told her what had happened and then said, "I love you more than anything else in the world. Come with me to my father's castle. You shall become my wife." Snow White loved him, and she went with him. Their wedding was planned with great splendor and majesty. This is where it gets really good. Snow White's godless stepmother, here we go, was also invited to the feast. After putting on her beautiful clothes, she stepped before her mirror and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" The mirror answered, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but the young queen is 1,000 times fairer than you." The wicked woman uttered a curse, and she became so frightened that she did not know what to do. At first, she did not want to go to the wedding, but she found no peace. She had to go and see the young queen. When she arrived, she recognized Snow White, and terrorized, she could only stand there without moving. Then they put a pair of iron shoes into burning coals. They were brought forth with tongs and placed before her. She was forced to step into the red-hot shoes and dance until she fell down dead. And that is the original Brothers Grimm Snow White story, which is awesome. It's simple, and it's just it's a little long for one of these stories, but at the same time, you have the evil queen has through envy, wants to hold on to her beauty in an unnatural way to the point where she wants to kill this child who, in this story, she's a stepmom. In the original one, she is, that Brothers Grimm is actually based on. It's very similar to this. They changed only a couple small details in that it was her own mother. So her own mother is trying to kill her own daughter because her daughter becomes more beautiful than her. But she gets her comeuppance at the end. Everything is resolved in a brutal way, which is a classic German fairy tale. So want to see us do more on this channel, then hit that like and subscribe. Share the channel with everyone else. And yeah, with that, we're going to hit this outro and catch you guys next time. So have fun.
I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost 1,000,000 times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady. I've lost a million times already. I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy. My heart feels heavy, I've lost already. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am. I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not here